I always wake up first. I set the coffee maker to quiet dawn mode, open the shutters to let the northwestern ray into the kitchen, and usually her light steps are heard when the freshly ground Brazilian coffee starts to rise with its aroma to the ceiling. But that May morning, Audrey came down silently, as if she had sneaked down from the upstairs. On her face was a carefully drawn calm, like those girls who smile in meditation commercials. Her eyes were even, not mirror-like, not a trace of sleepy blur, although she always grumbles if the alarm clock goes off instead of me. "Ethan," she said, placing her phone screen down on the marble island, "could you go down to the basement and bring me a glass jar? The one with the red lid, you know." The phrase sounded without a hint of please, neither a request nor an order, but as a precise task, measured by 2 breaths of air. I turned to her over the steam column of the coffee maker. "Which one exactly?" "There are a dozen different ones there. You'll recognize it." The phone vibrated quietly, but she didn't lift her gaze from the screen. There was something in "you'll recognize it" that scratched my hearing. Audrey was used to being precise down to the comma, from the shade of paint for the wall to the gram weight of salt in the bolognese. And now she was suggesting I guess. The toasts popped out with a soft clap, as if marking a pause. I carefully spread them with almond cream cheese, while in my head I scrolled through the necessary shelf, the right wall, the second row, jars from under honey, from under marinated peppers. "A red lid, is there such a thing?" "Sure," I said, more to hear the sound of my own voice than to answer. The basement of our house in Kirkland is not quite a cellar, more like a semi-basement storage of fear of getting rid of the past. Boxes with student notes, sketchboards with Audrey's sketches, dried paints, reels with old UX layouts, a dusty garland in the shape of tiny teacups. We once discussed selling all this at a flea market, but never dared. I reached for the switch. The lamp under the ceiling clicked with fluorescent silence, casting a blue tint on the cobweb. The air smelled of damp wood and last year's soil. Somewhere a microscopic time machine squeaked. A cricket, or a faulty socket. The jars really stood in armies on the shelf, amber, olive, transparent, with green, white, chrome lids. Red, as it turned out, exactly one. It seemed to pose, pulled half a step forward, clean, glass without bubbles, the lid of scarlet line aloft, not at all from the sets that I bought for pickles. Reaching out, I accidentally hit an elbow against a tin box of fishing flies. It crashed loudly to the floor. The metal clanged, a sound out of place in the morning semi-days. I squatted to pick up the box and saw a thin, folded piece of paper wedged between the back wall and the shelf rail. The paper was yellowish, like a parking ticket, and trembled in the draft as if it wanted to leave on its own. I unfolded it. The handwriting was small, angular scribbles, without dates. "Stop pretending he doesn't guess. You're not that smart." Audrey wrote neatly, but nervously when she was in a hurry. I knew every letter of hers: X with a long right stroke, T with a barely noticeable loop. These were her letters. A cold chill ran down my shoulders. Memory cards clicked in my head, late returns, phone screen down, muffled laughter behind the bathroom door. I folded the note back, as if rolling up my own heart. I took the jar and stood up, feeling the weight not of the glass, but of the meaning. In the kitchen, it still smelled of almond cheese and freshly brewed coffee, but the smell seemed alien, cramped. Audrey stood by the window, her gaze lost somewhere in the maple crowns. The phone flashed again. She turned off the screen with one touch, so quickly, as if rehearsing. I put the jar on the table. "Here. Found it." My voice sounded even, as if copying her morning tone. Audrey took the jar with 2 fingers by the neck, carefully, as if holding a raw egg. With her fingernails, she tapped on the wall, as if checking the density of the silence inside. "Here it is," she said, and squeezed out a smile. The smile didn't reach her eyes, and I clearly understood, this is makeup for the viewer, not joy. What do you need it for? I asked, pretending to tie the lace on my sneaker. Thought I'd start collecting. Cute little things. Tickets, notes, she said, laying out the words like bricks so they wouldn't stand out. You know, a memory bank for a couple. Our relationship in 2 years never required concrete blocks of sentimentality, neither memory banks nor time capsules. And Audrey always considered romantic frills as dust collectors. She put the jar in the center of the table and returned to her phone. I watched as the sun's glare slid across the smooth glass and froze. The jar openly kept silent, but for the first time I felt, the silence of a thing can be louder than any scream. In the evening, I will climb the stairs, and the creak of the step will seem like a warning to me. At night, I will hear how notifications flicker on her screen, and each vibration will echo under my ribs. For now, I drank the cooled coffee, watching the jar as if something was already stirring inside. And, it seems, a shadow in the transparent glass really twitched. The next day, the jar became an invisible pole of the kitchen. I noticed how the rays of the midday sun lay on its smooth surface, like a spotlight highlighting forgotten props. Audrey, on the contrary, pretended that the glass cylinder did not exist. She passed by, never touching it, as if a hornet had settled inside. I cut the grapefruit into thin semicircles, watching how droplets of pink juice flowed down the blade. Meanwhile, Audrey was scrolling through messages from left to right, as if flipping through metro tiles in a browser. Every 5 seconds, her finger tapped on the screen, not too fast to be a chat, not too slow to be reading articles. More like checking. Anything urgent at work? I asked, trying to sound ordinary. She looked up with a slight delay, like an actress being prompted a line. Yes, I'm testing a new flow for a client. Deadlines are tight. She didn't specify which client. Audrey usually loved details, at least an abbreviation, at least technical jargon. The negligence gave away the nerves. By lunch, I resisted the urge to put the jar in the cabinet. Instead, I started an experiment. I pulled the glass a couple of centimeters forward, to see if she would notice. In the evening, I found the jar exactly where I had left it, not a millimeter to the right. But on the lid, a new tiny dent, as if someone had poked the paint with a nail. The night passed in the quiet grinding of thoughts. The crack could have always been there, but I swore I had seen the lid perfectly smooth. The next morning, I deepened the game. I left a colored marker and a piece of paper nearby. I scribbled, "What will we store first?" I signed a smiley so as not to look pitiful. Returning from the run, I saw the piece of paper turned over, the marker, in the same place. No answer appeared. The stationery looked untouched, only under the piece of paper, a small sector of the table glistened with clean varnish. Did Audrey wipe the dust? The imperceptible habits of her body were now like exposed wires. Before, while talking, she would throw her hair behind her ear. The last 2 nights her hair remained to cover her cheek. Instead of the classic listening face, she made a not-showing stance, her hand under her chin, her fingers closing her lips. And also, she started laughing silently, only flaring her nostrils. The silence between us thickened. I heard the ticking of the wall clock in the living room so clearly, as if they had settled in my eardrums. We haven't had dinner with the guys for a long time. Maybe we should arrange one. I threw the phrase at random. Work is hectic, Audrey cut off without looking up, but we can think about it. The words were soft as moss, but the pause after hectic cut to the bone. She was choosing an excuse. On Friday, I returned earlier. In the hallway, it smelled of fresh lemon floor cleaner. There was a slight rustle of the vacuum cleaner. The robot cleaner was crawling in loops. Audrey had apparently just left. Her laptop was blinking on charge, and on the table, the same jar. Only now there was a folded napkin next to it, which definitely wasn't there before. Grinning with wary curiosity, I blew on the glass wall. A thin film of dust swirled up. On the lacquered countertop, a chain of barely visible letters was guessed, as if someone had written with their finger, then erased it, but not completely. Don't guess. My heart pounded in my throat. I remembered the handwriting on the note from the basement, angular D, and a smooth stroke after G. The traces matched. Did Audrey leave herself a reminder? Or did someone leave it for her? I took a photo of the inscription, erasing the edges with my finger. I didn't want her to know about my discovery ahead of time. That night, we lay on opposite sides of the bed, a strip of cold cotton between us. Through the windows, the moonlight touched the jar on the kitchen island. I saw the reflection through the slightly open door, like the dim figure of a night lantern. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the glass at my temple. I dreamed that the jar was filled with mercury, heavy, silvery. It shifted the center of gravity of the table until the furniture cracked. I woke up even before the alarm, at 4:43, with a feeling of dust in my mouth. On my lips, the same metallic note that sounded in the dream. With the Saturday dawn came a strange calm. I brewed strong tea, covered the jar lid with my palm, as if shaking hands with myself, and whispered, either we breathe the same air again, or I find out what you filled it with. My fingers twitched, but I didn't turn the lid. Not yet time. I looked at my phone. A notification from an unknown number, one word, ready? Blood rushed to my face, my back sweated in the cold of the kitchen. I didn't answer. I just put the phone next to the jar, let them lie together, two silent witnesses who know more than I do. Outside, the dawn spread an orange seam over Lake Washington. In the reflection of the window, I saw myself and the glass cylinder next to me, like a duet that is about to play the first real note. The morning sun shone, sliding across the kitchen tiles, but the taste of coffee was gone. I drank the scalding Americano, demanding vigor, and my tongue only distinguished bitterness. The jar stood on the island, like a frozen figure from the game Freeze. Audrey left the house even before 8, citing an emergency call with a client. Until the evening, there was a boundless day, and the glass guest highlighted my loneliness, like a shop window lamp on a forgotten item. The phone was silent all day. I thought, if the unknown number was a bluff, why does alarm ring inside? And yet, I didn't dare to touch the lid. I delayed. I watched a football replay, scrolled through the feed, watered the succulents, any small tasks, just not to hear how the jar silently calls. Audrey returned for dinner, smelling of someone else's spirit, neither floral nor woody, rather declaratively expensive, a scent that doesn't linger in public transport. Her lips glistened with colorless tint, and her eyes wandered, as if simultaneously writing letters to an imaginary addressee. How was your day? She asked, pouring herself sparkling water. Quiet, I answered. And did everything get sorted out on the call? Still in progress. The glass in her hand barely trembled, the ice cubes clinked too loudly, the sound cut through the hearing. That night, the shower ran longer than usual, hot steam billowed under the door, saturating the corridor with the smell of cedar and musk. I sat on the edge of the bed, counting seconds, listening to how the heart echoed. When the bathroom door clicked and the water subsided, I quietly stood up. In the kitchen, only the night light in the shape of a copper lamp was on, its orange halo turned the jar into an amber drop. I leaned my palm against the glass, cool, lifeless. On the inhale, I heard my own rasp, as if the jar was being opened inside my chest. The lid gave way almost without resistance, emitting a soft tick. Inside, neatly folded, lay 3 movie tickets. The paper had faded, the edges had become soft, like an old sheet. Dates, March 10th, March 28th, April 12th. Places, Regal Meridian Multiplex in downtown Seattle. The names of the movies, all romantic dramas. Audrey always joked that after work she was contraindicated sugar syrup. On top of the tickets, a thin red ribbon, as if an invisible someone had tied a symbolic bow. Blood rushed to my temples. I heard a low drum beating in my ears. In March, she was staying late for a design sprint, in April helping a friend with a wedding. Each excuse now surfaced in my memory like a forgotten check. The steps of bare feet in the corridor. I lowered the lid back in place as quietly as I could and stepped into the shadow. Audrey passed by the kitchen, clearly heading to the bedroom, drying her hair with a towel. She didn't notice the jar. Or pretended not to. After midnight, the room plunged into dark blue twilight. Audrey breathed evenly, her face in the pillow, her phone, under the low nightstand, the charging cable barely glowed with a dot. Fear and adrenaline fought with conscience. Conscience surrendered first. The password hasn't been changed, her grandmother's birthday. The screen came alive with a soft light. Gallery. First, the usual shots, a prototype in Figma, a matcha latte cup, our dog squirt. But the line of hidden albums at the bottom, misc. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Photo after photo, a stranger's interior, the warm light of a restaurant, glasses of Prosecco. A hand in men's watches lies on top of her palm. The edge of the frame cuts off the face. In another shot, a hotel room, a room service dish, 2 robes on one hook. And in the center, the jar. The same red rim, only the table is wooden, not ours. Then a short video. Audrey laughs, with a high, hoarse laugh that I haven't heard from her for months. The camera quickly turns. A part of a male profile flashes in the frame, then cuts off. A voice behind the camera hums low, familiarly painful, but the frantic scrolling doesn't allow the chain of associations to form into a name. At the end of the album, a screenshot of a messenger. Message: take the jar back tonight. He won't open it. The sender is hidden by an icon without initials. My heart sank, my chest suddenly emptied, as if the air had been sucked out of it. My fingers lost their warmth. I closed the gallery, locked the phone, put it back in the same place, sparing the thickness of the silence. There were no tears, no screams. Just a long crack from the temple to the heart, the inaudible sound of glass cracking under icy water. On my phone screen, one new message blinked, the same unknown number, now you see. I typed slowly so my fingers wouldn't betray the tremor. Who are you? The answer came almost immediately, the one who is tired of her game rules. Ready for the full truth? I looked at Audrey's sleeping face. Her hair in the dark seemed inky, her breathing, calm, like a child's after a long day in the park. How easily she sleeps, it flashed, while my brain spins like a hard drive without lubrication. I typed 2 words on the keyboard, I'm ready. The screen went dark. The room remained the same dark blue. I sat on the floor, leaned my back against the headboard, my knees under my chin. In my head, frames flashed, the red lid, romantic tickets, an unfamiliar voice behind the camera, the text take the jar back. But the loudest were the words read in the basement, you're not that smart. Now they had changed the addressee, they were about me. I considered myself attentive. I thought that 2 souls could live without secret rooms. Through the slightly open door, the flickering outline of the jar was visible. The night light was enough for the glass to catch a faint glint, like the eye of a creature that knows more than it says. For the first time in 2 years, I felt the deep loneliness of a stranger in my own home. But next to it, a strange, amazing clarity, as if the fog had dissipated over the abyss and showed how wide it was. There were 4 hours until dawn. Inside, a plan was quietly forming, still bloodless, but already inevitable, to give the secret a name to regain my breath. Wrap the jar Monday greeted us with drizzling rain, as if the sky had decided to erase the traces of the weekend. Audrey slipped out of the house before the alarm, leaving behind the still moist steam of perfume. On the table, a brief "I'll be back late" in the messenger, without a sticker, without kiss. I watched as the online status slowly ran on the phone screen, then went out. And then another notification flashed, the same unknown number, "Wrap the jar." Two laconic phrases flashed and disappeared, like a camera flash. I fixed my gaze on the glass cylinder in the center of the island. It was banal, but now it seemed like an artifact any of its sides could turn out to be a secret door. Fingers that trembled, I threw on a hoodie, as if armor, and took the jar with both hands. The glass chilled my palms, the lid seemed heavier than before. Slowly turning the cylinder, I noticed a barely protruding edge of the label, a pale beige strip of oilcloth, the same shade as the glass under daylight. A camouflage designed for inattention. I pried it with my nail, and the label, trembling, came off behind it, a thin seam, as if the glass was joined from two halves. At the very bottom, a tiny bubble of air gleamed. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a mini pocket made of transparent tape. The width of a finger, the length of a phalanx, inside was a 32 GB microSD card. A sticker on top, a red marker had written two letters GL, no other markings. My fingers trembled as I pulled out the card with tweezers. It seemed that the noise of my pulse could raise the entire neighborhood. Files that smell of lies. The laptop hummed like an old refrigerator. I insert the card into the adapter, the seconds seemed like minutes. A folder without a name. Inside, 26 video files and one audio. The sizes are small, many clips shorter than a minute. I clicked on the first one. Clip 1, Audrey sits on the couch. The interior is not ours. A brick wall, a floor lamp in an industrial style. She throws her head back and laughs, freely, ringing. I haven't heard that laugh in a long time. The camera shakes, the operator is clearly holding the phone. A man's hand comes into the frame, stroking her neck. On the wrist, watches with a black nylon NATO strap. I gave such ones to Ryan Carter for his 30th birthday. Freeze frame. I needed a minute to breathe. Clip 4, Marjorie restaurant. Audrey feeds a man with a fork. The camera hides his face, but I recognize the tattoo line on the forearm, an electric bolt. Ryan got it after the marathon. Clip 8, inside a car. A short road trip in Stories. Both are laughing. Audrey turns the jar with the red lid in her hands, like a souvenir. A voice behind the camera, clear, bass, unmistakable. Jar's our lucky token. He'll never suspect a thing. Clip 12, a scan of a hotel reservation. Guest name, R. Carter. With each file, it was as if someone was turning up the volume of pain inside me. But the real rupture came with the audio recording, Audrey, whispering, "Don't worry, he'll never check anything. He's too trusting. The jar is just a game. I'll say it's a memory jar, he'll buy it." Male voice, "Do you think conscience won't wake up?" Audrey, "Conscience? I'm just exploring the boundaries. He is the perfect observer. He doesn't interfere as long as the play goes on." The words fell like burning ash, quiet, but scorching to the bone. The screen blurred with unsolicited tears. I wiped them away with the back of my hand, like someone else's water. Meeting with the accomplice. The phone flashed again. "See how deep the game is?" I replied without greetings. "Who are you?" "Marcus Reed." Two short words, a name I had vaguely heard, Audrey's ex, from her student days, a strangely calm guy, once glimpsed in her old photos. "Why are you helping me?" She has a habit of making people into decoration. I was scene number 1. You are number 2. I don't want there to be number 3. My fingers squeezed the phone so hard that the plastic creaked. Through the anger, a strange surge of gratitude to a person I hadn't even seen broke through. "Is there a plan?" I wrote. The answer flew instantly. "Let her expose herself on stage. I'll give you dates, addresses, more videos. Gather the guests. Let the epilogue be seen by the audience." The lines in the messenger seemed icy, but they trembled with a layered layer: anger, revenge, fatigue. I looked at the glowing screen, at the jar, now empty, but heavy, and understood. I will finish the play. But without screaming. Without beating. The facts will be louder. Quiet still in the evening, Audrey returned, threw a takeout bag on the table, stretched out to me like a cat for a kiss. I allowed my lips to touch her cheek, a gesture that was supposed to give off warmth. There was no warmth, but she didn't notice. She was too engrossed in making a salad, too attentive to the messages flickering on her phone screen. "Tired?" she asked, not looking up. I shrugged. The day was productive. She nodded, not listening. And I observed with peripheral vision how the name Ryan C. appeared on the screen. FaceTime. Audrey quickly turned away, turned off the sound. Each of her movements now added up to a step-by-step recipe for betrayal, and I, in the gloves of a surgeon, recorded the ingredients with silence. 6. The first stroke of the plan at night. Sitting in the dark of the study, I opened the email. The subject of the email: Devil's Footage. Part 2. In the attachment, 7 more files and a list of addresses: bars, a hotel on the coast, a private house in Snohomish. At the end, Marcus's dry note: schedule dinner for this Friday. Invite mutual friends. Anne, a surprise guest. My fingers trembled as I dialed the address book. My heart beat evenly. A strange calm came over me. When the truth is fully exposed, fear dies. Only surgical concentration remains. I finished the cold tea, and, before closing the laptop, opened a blank document: guest list. I put Ryan Carter's name first. Second, Marcus Reed. I filled out the remaining 10 lines slowly, in even handwriting, as if signing invitations to a wedding that would no longer be. In the kitchen, the jar was bathed in a moonlit path. It glowed with emptiness, and for the first time in weeks, I truly felt lighter to breathe. Her game would end in the spotlight. And I, perhaps, would remain in the ruins, but already without this glass hive of lies, buzzing in my temples. All Friday day, I moved like a theater worker behind the scenes, setting the table, checking the lamps, unrolling the extension cord to the white wall of the living room. It would become the screen. But through the mechanical calm, a sharp, almost musical sense of anticipation peaked. The orchestra had already tuned, the light was about to go out. I chose a light menu: baked salmon, salad with goat cheese, risotto with lemon zest. Dishes that don't require my presence at the last minute. In the center of the table, that very jar. Empty, washed to a squeak, without a lid. Let it be a trophy cup, a reminder of where the play grew from. At exactly 16, Marcus sent the last message: the flash drive is with you, the files are in the right order. I'll be there at 19:45. Let Ryan come in first. By 7:30, the house breathed of rosemary and fresh bread. Our designer colleagues arrived, a neighboring couple, Audrey's cousin Savannah, talkative but observant. Carefree laughter floated in the air. No one felt the current running under the parquet. Audrey came down at 19:30. A dress the color of a ripe lemon hugged her waist, a thin chain bracelet on her wrist. She smiled at the guests, handing out hugs as if she were the hostess of a country ranch. She thanked them for the wine, offered croquettes. Only the glints of sweat at her hairline betrayed the tension. "Sweetie, where's the lid for the jar?" Savannah asked playfully, turning the glass. Oops, lost it somewhere. Audrey waved it off and immediately turned to the sideboard, as if looking for a corkscrew. I saw, her fingers trembled slightly but firmly. She felt that something today didn't fit into the usual decor, but she didn't yet know which prop would explode. The doorbell rang. I opened it, and Ryan stepped in a dark blue jacket, with a "I'm at home at any party" smile. He raised a bottle of bourbon, just from Kent. I thought for steak, but you love fish. Just right, I answered, keeping my voice even. For a second, we stood, measuring each other with glances. He didn't know that I knew. I didn't know how many masks he had in reserve. In the hallway, it smelled of rain and the leather of his sleeves. In the living room, Audrey turned around. Her smile faltered, like a film that had been played an extra frame. She stepped towards us, hugging Ryan too quickly. I didn't say you could make it, she threw out, and, without waiting for an answer, pointed to the bar. I saw how her pupils dilated. Audrey's brain was feverishly building a new scheme for the evening, where Ryan was an unforeseen variable. 1945. The second ring. I opened it, and Marcus Reed stood on the threshold, a grey trench coat, smoothly combed hair, a calm half-smile. Audrey froze with a glass of wine in her hand, as if a clapperboard in slow motion. Have we met? Her voice rang too high. In passing, Marcus replied, taking off his coat. Nice to meet you officially. I'm an old friend of Ethan's. She turned away to the window, sharply sipped her wine. I saw that the color of her cheeks turned ashen. The barking of a dog on the street, the clinking of forks on plates, everything merged into a distant hum. In the center of the room stood the jar, a glass beacon. When the salmon was served on plates and the conversations reached a light alcoholic hum, I stood up. Friends, 5 minutes of attention. I have prepared a short video. A story about trust, I began, turning on the projector. The remote trembled in my hand, but my voice sounded even, almost lecture-like. Audrey turned from the chair, her smile froze. In the first frame, she herself appeared, a frame from the clip in the industrial loft. She laughs, throwing her head back. The hall fell silent. Someone thought it was a surprise reel about relationships. Audrey stood up, put down her glass. The next frame, Ryan's hand on her shoulder, close up. A whisper behind the camera, "Jar's our lucky token. He'll never suspect a thing." Savannah covered her mouth with her hand. The fragile laughter of a colleague died down, like a broken metronome. Ryan paled, his eyes darted to Audrey, then to me, looking for an explanation that wasn't there. "Ethan, turn it off," Audrey hissed, stepping forward. "This is private." I raised my hand. "1 more minute." The frame changed to a hotel bill, names are Carter and Audrey Clark. Behind it, photos of dinner, hugs by the car, a short kiss in the elevator mirror. The last file, audio, whose whisper spread through the room, "Don't worry, he's too trusting. The jar is just a game." The silence hit hard, like the door of a stone chamber. Someone's glass clinked against the glass edge of the table, the hand trembled. "You?" Audrey swallowed the air, the words were in no hurry. "This is manipulation. You violated your game." I spoke softly, but each word cut through the space. The jar was a prop. I just opened the lid in front of the audience. "Did you set it up?" Ryan turned to me. His voice boiled with defensive aggression. "You set it up," Marcus intervened, stepping forward. I just turned on the light on the stage. The guests froze. Someone lowered their gaze into the plate. Someone turned away to the window. Audrey stepped back to the jar, as if wanting to hide the artifact back into the shadow, but only touched the edge of the table. The glass trembled, but remained in place. It's all a lie. Finally burst from her lips. Marcus, you're stalking me. Ethan, I have enough of my own eyes, I said. And ears. Audrey looked around at the faces. No one answered her with a nod, no one reached out a napkin. Her breathing quickened, her eyes wandered searchingly, until they came across the empty jar. Her hand twitched, whether to grab it or to knock it over. The resonant silence amplified every movement. Take it, I pushed the jar to the edge of the table. You need it more. You arranged all this to humiliate me. She screamed, her voice broke into a rasp. I arranged for the truth to sound louder than a whisper. Savannah quietly stood up, touched Audrey's shoulder, but she jerked, throwing off the palm. At that moment, a fragile strand of control snapped. Audrey cursed, knocked over the glass, wine flowed down the tablecloth like a scarlet vein, and she rushed out of the dining room. The steps of her heels faded in the corridor, the front door slammed. The world froze. The projector continued to hum, the empty bluish frame shone on the wall. The smell of burnt rosemary mixed with the cold of the draft that burst in through the open door. I pressed stop. The screen went dark. The jar stood on the edge of the table, empty, in drops of red wine. The guests slowly came into motion. Someone picked up a glass, someone averted their gaze. Savannah whispered sorry to me and followed her cousin. Ryan took off his jacket, as if he had gotten hot, and quietly said, I didn't know you kept all the files. If I don't keep them, I won't see them, I replied. He tried to add something, but the words got stuck, and he left, lowering his shoulders. He forgot the bourbon on the dresser, the bottle swayed, but didn't fall. The remaining guests, under the pretext of the late hour, dispersed into the night rain. In the house, only I, the jar, the faint smell of fish that no one had eaten, and Marcus, standing in the doorway, remained. A finale worthy of her repertoire, he said. Finales can be different. I closed the laptop, feeling a weariness deeper than bones. Marcus smiled, a tired but sincere smile. You're free, Ethan. Further, it's a matter of silence, not noise. The door closed softly behind him. I turned off the light, sat opposite the trophy jar. Through the window, it was visible how the rain streaked the street with yellow lines of lanterns. The heart beat quietly, surprisingly evenly. On the table, the red liquid spread around the glass like a seal. The object, which once seemed a symbol of betrayal, was now an empty vessel. That night, I allowed myself the luxury, not to feel anything else. The rain poured out all it could until dawn, and now outside the window, July glass, wiped dry by the wind. The house smells of wet wood and something that's hard to name, either emptiness or freedom. On the kitchen island stands the jar, clean, girded with a dried rim of red wine, like a bloody signature of yesterday's play. I, like a receiver of utilized dishes, wrap it in craft paper, and put the lid separately, in the pocket of my hoodie. The goods must arrive to the one who ordered them. The address, Marcus's handwritten cheat sheet, reminds of itself at the windshield. At the new building in the South Lake Union area, it smells of fresh concrete and lavender planted by landscapers. The elevator to the fourth floor sways like a boat at low tide. The door of 4B opens by Audrey herself, as if she knew I would come. In a down jacket over a t-shirt, without makeup, her eyes red but dry. Forgot something? Her voice is dull, like wet sand. I unwrap the paper. The glass gleamed. Returning the container to the owner, I say. The contents this time are yours. She accepts the jar, but holds it like a shard of ice. Our gazes collide, and suddenly I see not cunning, but the bewilderment of a child who has piled a house of cards too high. She opens her mouth, either for an excuse or for a curse, but instead of words, she lets out a heavy sigh. We both made a trick out of trust. I say this unexpectedly even for myself. Only I have learned to look when the curtain has already fallen. I step towards the elevator. Behind my back, a whisper, Ethan. Forgive me. The words fly but don't catch. I don't turn around, not out of pride, out of completeness. In the evening, I meet Ryan at a bar on the waterfront, he asked himself. The red neon of the sign trembles on the dark water, the bar smells of tar from old ropes. We sit at the end of the counter, each with a bourbon, that very unopened bottle. I want to apologize, he begins, looking into the amber of the glass. Not for the feelings, but for the cowardice. Leave it. I take a sip. An apology is a foundation pit. Fill it with actions. We clink glasses. The glasses thud dully, the union of two people who have lost their trajectory to the common sky, but have retained the possibility of not becoming enemies. The final point, the pier of Puget Sound. The tide has exposed the seaweed, the air is thick with salt. I walk onto the wooden pier with a paper bag in my hand, inside is the lid of the jar. I squeeze the metal, I feel how the sharp edge cuts into my palm. I throw the lid into the water. It falls without a splash, just dissolves into the rippling blackness. Along with this sound, if there was a sound, the necessity to prove something to yesterday's day dissolves. The phone vibrates. Savannah, short, how are you? I type, breathing, and for the first time in a long time, I understand that this is not a polite mantra, but a physical fact. The inhale smells of salt, the exhale, of the tar of the decking. The lungs don't ache. Over the bay, an airplane flashes, its fire resembles the red dot of an old recording, but it flies, forward, not in a circle. I return home by 10. The kitchen seems larger than before, no jar, no hidden seams. I open the cabinet, take out an old glass carafe, without a lid, without riddles, and pour icy water. I cut the bread with a thick, uneven crust. I hear how the knife slides on the wooden board, a simple, honest sound. On the refrigerator, I attach a clean sheet of paper. At the top, I write with a marker, list of what I want to keep, words that match actions, laughter that doesn't need to be hidden, silence in which respect breathes. I look at the lines, they still smell of marker alcohol, and smile. The sheet remains white by 2/3. Space is more useful than an archive. I go to bed with the window open, the wind from the lake carries the smell of fur and fresh roads. The darkness does not press, rather unfolds over the bed, like a high tent. Before falling asleep, I think, silence can indeed be a sign of fidelity if there are no secret compartments in it.